It's Dave, and you're about to listen to a very special episode of the podcast. We're going to go very deep, and we're going to go well beyond the normal boundaries that we contain this podcast to. And I have two very special guests on. I have Shalva and Catalina, but Shalva's just going to share a few words about the context for what we're going to discuss in this amazing podcast.
Hello, Dave. So today we're here to speak about my book that just was published a few weeks ago, a message to humanity from nature and beyond. Those messages were downloaded through guided shamanic journeys, which is a method that I kind of put together between transpersonal hypnotherapy and shamanic journeys that allow people to travel into shamanic realms through in a safe therapeutical space. And so the messages that were downloaded through those guided shamanic journeys were messages from spirits of natures and higher light being who have come forward to speak in this communication platform to share about their insight about what's happening in these times and what they would like the humans to hear. And so this communication platform allow us to reinstall communication with universal consciousness and move on together through these times, because they are part, the animal realm, the vegetal realm, even the mineral realm. We are all part of this evolution that the planet is going through now, and we are doing it together as universal consciousness. And if we have a synchronized work, doing that together and hear from each other what they are doing, what's their part, what should be our part, remembering what should be our part, to have this harmonized orchestra that we are composing all together, all playing our parts. So yes, basically that was the direction of this book.
So you're about to go on a wild ride through many different worlds and stories. Buckle up, enjoy the ride, and we're going to take you on a very unique and rare podcast experience. You're listening to the Octave Leap podcast, a coherent vision for the future of business. Welcome back to the Octave Leap podcast. We're here today with two lovely guests, and we're going to go in a direction that's maybe a little bit deeper than we typically go, but very important at this time of great change. We're reminded to tune out of the distraction and tune back into what's most important. And I'm honored to be here by Shalva and Catalina to discuss connecting with the heart of our vision from a multidimensional perspective. So Shalva, how are you doing today?
Very good. Thank you. And yourself?
I feel very light and very fluid right now. We had a beautiful opening space, which I feel I need to incorporate more of these before we film a podcast so that the right message comes through and flows more naturally with the often non-linear experience of who might be watching this one day. And I just want to say Shalva's written a book recently, and I had a chance to read a portion of the book, and Catalina was also featured in the book. And it's really powerful for these times. What do you feel is most relevant from your book for what's happening in the world right now?
I think the focus really what came through all the travelers that were downloading messages through guided shamanic journeys in this book was that we are multidimensional being, and we sometimes forget that, and we navigate this experience only from our human level. But we, being human is just a tiny, one of the message that Catalina downloaded one time is that being human is just one tiny part of who we are. We are much more than just humans. And so when we reconnect with the universal consciousness, and we remember to reconnect with all the other dimensions dimensions of our being, we are able to navigate these from completely different perspective. We're being able to rise higher than the macro consciousness that are in place, attempting to manipulate people in one direction or another. And so when we remember that and we rise our frequency above the vibrational level of those micro consciousness, we are able to touch base with our higher self, with our soul, who is really should be the barometer, the compass to help us navigate this troubled time, and not navigating from our emotional body or from our mental body, which sometimes keep us stuck, in fears, and keep us where we can be stuck in these emotions that are generated not just by us, but by the collective consciousness. And so it creates these micro consciousness. They create a kind of cloud, a kind of veil that is covering us. It's kind of it's kind of creating a shell above.
A shroud.
Yes, above us. And so it's just a matter of remembering that actually when we are working from our heart space, we can rise higher to we can rise our vibration to a higher space and then navigate from this higher space.
Absolutely. The nature of the mind, especially the left brain, is to filter, right? It's filtering reality. It's usually just confirming the bias that it already has. The heart, though, of course, as we know, is well beyond the five senses and what it's detecting. And, there's that famous quote, the longest journey in life is the journey from the 16 inches from the head to the heart. Because I think we live in a society that is so mind-dominated, and that to operate in this society, it requires a level of complexity that makes it slightly easier for people. I should say, not slightly, but it makes it easier to default into operating from the mind.
Yeah, the mental body should be just a vehicle that facilitates the navigation of the soul in this realm. It shouldn't be the captain.
Absolutely. That's what I've said this many times, is that, the mind is a great servant, but a poor master. Right? The mind allows us to remember information and problem solve and communicate. But if it's meant to make decisions, it's going to base it on its conditioning of the past. Many spiritual teachers have said that the mind is slower than the heart, and even the body. The body operates on a very quick instinct. I'd like to hear from you, Catalina, about this download that Shalva was referring to, where you realize that the human existence is like a drop in a large ocean of our existence. What was that experience like to have, and how has that impacted your life since?
I think that all these journeys that we began 2 years ago, I think that changed completely my life. I was in my path and I was tuned to many things, but when she asked me to help her in this work, that at the beginning has like another subject, for say it in a way. And I get there like with a lot of innocence. I was not expecting anything. I was only wanting to open my imagination, my sense of meditation, And at the end was amazing to get tuned to the infinite existence of the information that we are capable to tune. And not only some people, all the people have the capacity to tune in this amazing network of information that it's infinity. So the instructions, they were saying all the time that our brain, it's not made for understand the immensity of all this information. So we need to tune with our heart and with our other senses to the frequencies that are more allowed or that are more available for us. So it's like a matter of training yourself and your own vibration to tune in these spheres of information that we want to create and to manifest, because everything is existing. The density is existing and the light is existing. So all the time they were saying to us, choose with which reality you want to nurture in your life. And now I am very compassionate with myself and with my human part, and I really love my human part. But at the same time, I know that it's so small that I only use it when I need to be in my human part, that it's to get related, that it's to get in society, that it's to have that role of a mother or of a therapist or of a friend. But when I'm alone, or when I can be with myself, it's something that doesn't have any form. Because when you are traveling in these realms, you understand that you have been so much things, you have been so many things, you have been in parallel life, you have been her, you have been, so it's very unique the way that you can experience yourself being everything, and that change your individual story, so you are not more attached to that story anymore.
I feel like the shamanic path is sort of a direct interfacing with what you're describing there, where that you can actually access all of the other different existences and possibilities that lie out there. I think one thing with that is, sometimes when you're given infinite choice, like if you go to a restaurant and it's 10 pages of menus, it's like, how do I find the thing that's right for me? So within the infinite number of possibilities, I'm going to turn this over to Shalva. What do you feel in your experience are the ones that matter most to people? And what process of sifting through that needle in the haystack to find the most important one for people? How do you feel that process could take place?
First of all, the way this guide, for example, this method that is developed in the book, it's about guided shamanic journeys. So it's allowing people to do their journey, but accompanied in a therapeutical space. And so we basically invite the guide of the person to be present, and the guides are the one who are going to decide what's crucial for that person. And so for her it would be something, for somebody else it would be something completely different. But the guides, they would first of all, they would give us indication if there is something major that need to be healed, because sometimes it could be an obstacle to consciousness expansion. And so there are many layers of healing that can happen. And so I'm actually asking the guides to lead the healing. And when they give us a hint of what needs to be healed first, then we go through this healing and then we move on. And then they take us to to many different windows of consciousness expansion. And they're basically, in the end, it's coming back to reconnecting to our divine self. And but the thing is that we forget when we speak, for example, when people have an discomfort and they don't understand what's going wrong in their life, they don't necessarily know if this is something that comes from their emotional part, their etherical part, their mental part, or their spiritual part. They don't even know necessarily that there is something such as spiritual health. People speak all the time about mental health, but no one speaks about spiritual health. And spiritual health is about how engaged is your soul in your life, how much your soul wants to be part of this journey, how does your soul remember agreeing to be part of it, and how much space you give to your soul to be part of this journey. Do you make space for your soul to feel comfortable? Because for the infinite light to be confined in a physical body, this is not a simple experience. And so of course, the soul will, step down and disconnect, and if there is no space that is made for it to feel, to facilitate this journey, that is not natural for soul to be confined in this type of environment. And so most of the time it's people realizing that they, by reconnecting to their divine self, they're going to be nurtured, they're going to find alignment, they're going to find their real purpose, they're going to find the reason why they feel a void, they're going to understand why they feel this anxiety or this fear or whatever is happening. they're going to find there the possibility to re-navigate this realm, but from a heart space, not just from a mental space. Not because in a mental space you have so many possible interaction. You have programs implemented by society, by the family, by the medias, by so many things. You have imprints of past life, of this life. There are so many possible interference that to be able to find some clarity, if you don't invite the soul on board to give you a sense of where to guide yourself, it can become a little bit confused, complicated. And it makes sense.
Yes, I feel like it isn't just a one-stop, oh, now I return into my soul and that's all I need to do here.
Yes.
It's sort of like the guides are sort of a concierge back to greatness, but there's many stops along the way that we have to make because there's many interpenetrating forces at various levels of reality that have sort of bound that soul, like you're describing, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually even. And so it's sort of like, what's that thing to unknot? I always picture like when you put your Apple headphones in your pocket and you pull it out and it's all tangled. It's like, what's the one thing I got to do to get it slightly less untangled right now? Or like if you have a ball of yarn, it's like, what's the one thing I need to unthread to start this process?
Yeah, and that's the reason why we invite the guides on board. It's because we might, and that's the beauty of the shamanic process. And me personally, I was practicing already many modalities before I started the shamanic path. And, whether it's transpersonal hypnotherapy or homeopathy, whatever it is, even though the techniques are amazing and they are very spiritual, when you take it from the shamanic perspective and you invite on board the guides of the person, they're able to give you a hint of the priority for this soul, because this is what we're looking for, really. This is the journey of the soul. This is not anything else we're talking about.
Right. Especially being here in Bali, there's quite a rich tapestry of spirituality on this island. And what I've noticed, at least, and you can confirm this yourself, is there's sort of two major paths that I see. One that is more like a monk, in that it's just sort of like sitting, stillness, purifying back to source. And the other is the shamanic path, which is much more vibrant. There's much more movement through the middle dimensions. How would you say your experience is of both of those, and why did you choose the shamanic path over maybe a more sort of like silent or meditative path?
I think anything can work it depends on whoever you are, Me, I wouldn't be able to be the person sitting because I'm not able to do that. Some people are super able to do that. I'm just not able to do that. I'm an explorer. I need to go and check, this is my personality. I admire the people who are able to do that, I admire Catalina's capacity to connect through this, this state of meditation and be able to. It's not everybody have the same capacities, but everybody are able to find their own way to connect and their own way to align with their own light. And, and that's it. Most important is to find what works for you. There is not one way that is better than the other.
I think that's a good point to make, because sometimes, when people experience success with their path, they can get into the trap of saying, this is the only path. And then they do hold a light. And so others that are seeking see that and they're like, oh, I guess it's the only path out there. I'd like to turn it over to Catalina, though, and ask how your journey has been. You mentioned that prior to working with Shalva, that, you were already on a path, but that when you worked with her, it greatly accelerated. So what was the major shift between what you were doing before and what's happened after your work with Shalva?
I think that maybe was not having any expectation. I didn't have any expectation. And at the same time, I was not attached to any result. I was only curious and I was only open and allowing everything to come. So So it was amazing because they always give me a part of the journey that I could take to my house and to search, and that information was real. So in that moment, I began, it's like the journeys began to mix with my real life. So they give me instructions that when I get to the physical place, I receive what they said that I was going to receive. Or, so everything for me was a process of knowing that when the consciousness is getting expanded, it get expanded in all directions. Like everything begins to talk and to speak to you. So was so tuned that I think that the difference was that with the journeys I get in the tempo, like in this totally synchronicity with everything.
Yes. Well, as you're speaking there, that state you're talking about where like you'll see a vision and then like it will pop up just like that. You'll see a place or there'll be somebody and that they'll turn around and say something unexpectedly out of character, but that is exactly precisely like what you saw. And that's showing that whatever you were tapped into has made its way through all the planes down to the physical three-dimensional reality.
Yes, because they, for example, they give me information that I was not possible to know. For example, of a Jewish ceremony that I don't know anything about, Jewish traditions, no, but they give me all the perfect details so I can realize that the information that I was receiving was real. No, and even I was so tuned into allowing the process to come that they said to me, you need to go with all your family to Colombia, and I went. And in Colombia, they said, no, she was asking me, what you are going to meet there? And they were showing me a box with a cylinder and with a special light object. And when I get there, I met the mamo, and I said to him, you call me, I'm here. And we began to work, and at the end, he took this box, he opened it, and he gave me the cylinder. So I was like, we are really living in a magic world. It's not only a fantasy, So I think that the beautiful thing of this process is that I think because I was so devoted to the work that she proposed, that they give it to me in every sense, and was amazing.
That is beautiful.
Very beautiful.
That's
You didn't get to that part of the book yet.
Oh, no. I got sent the book 3 days ago, and my schedule was pretty full, so I was just tucking it in when I could read it, but I will read the rest of it because, especially now with this context as well added into the picture, because I feel like I'm being taken on a magical journey right now with both you ladies. And I think one thing, just saying to anyone listening, that it's not about the glamour of it. Yeah. It's really not about the glamour, but it's actually about the potency of what happens when we reconnect with this infinite part of ourselves.
And I think that mostly to allow it, because every one of us have it. But the thing is, do you allow this part, Because at the beginning you can think, maybe I am making this up. But in this, this training and this state of surrendering is where everything grows.
There was a quote my first spiritual teacher said. He said, everybody, including men, have to become woman with a capital W first, because I think it is that nature of surrendering back. It's giving up the ideas and the conquest that we have in our mind and taking on that it's that passive quality of release, of relinquishing, and seeing sort of what's there. In a way, if we're brokenhearted, that crack in our heart is where divinity can re-enter. Because the only reason we're broken is because we had armor that was protected, maybe protecting something, maybe with a good intention, but it wasn't incorporated into the flow of life.
And also what I would like to add is that actually there are so many messages that are ready for us, messages that we can receive from nature, from the universal consciousness that is willing to communicate with us. There is a will for this communication between all the living. And because we lost our ability to listen, we are missing all these possibilities of interconnection and expansion because of that. And so being able to reconnect with our multidimensional self, it's a very, it's not a luxury at all. It's such an important part of the human experience, because in the first place, when we came into this world of duality, of course, there is the veil that is, that is allowing the free will in this realm, and that's therefore there is a part for a place for darkness and a place for light, and this very existence of darkness of light is what gives us the ability, the possibility to have this free will. So we navigate from that place where we are under the veil, but we don't have to keep the veil. If we want to tear the veil and go beyond and not stay stuck in this dual realm, we can. We are invited actually to do so. It's not a fatality to stay in this dual dimension. And this is what we're invited to do. Humanity is invited to rise above this dual dimension in order to transform competition into collaboration. And this is the path that we are supposed to be taking. And so opening ourselves to all these other dimensions of ourselves, where we are less attached to the identity as we see now. I see myself as Shalva or as Catalina, but we are much more than that. We are not just Shalva and Catalina, where our essence is way beyond that, and where we are able to connect to this part. We're able to above beyond this dual dimension and communicate with those beings that have so much to tell us. They want to lead us through a path that is much more interesting than just dealing with a trauma. And because all this healing in the end is just here to clear the path, to allow consciousness expansion. And the faster we do it, the faster we are able to start to step into our full power and to align with our life purpose, which is much more exciting and interesting than just, fixing and putting band-aids on, I feel, I have fear here, I feel uncomfortable there, I have anxiety here. Those are on the way of consciousness expansion. And the clear message that were given to us is that the same way now, technology is challenging us, with the AI and all these progression in high technology. We are challenged to evolve in consciousness as fast as technology is evolving now, because a society where a level of technology is higher than the level of consciousness it's a recipe for disaster. And so we are now AI and went that far and that fast that we are challenged to also go in exponential speed in terms of consciousness expansion. And then I invite you, and many of us, do it in different ways, but I invite you to navigate the spiritual metaverse, because there is something much more interesting than the metaverse and staying in front of your computer. There is a spiritual metaverse. There are so many planes and dimensions to discover, where you can it's not just about going and explore what's outside. It's about exploring what the different dimensions of inside, of within, of yourself. How you this part of yourself is manifesting in different plane and dimension. What can you bring back from there? What gift, what abilities, what capacity, what insight you are able to bring back from this part of you that is there, embedded in those different dimensions and plane of reality. And what can you bring back to serve the people that you're around, and even yourself, in terms of consciousness expansion and us. And so, yeah, I think that it's not a luxury, it's not a game. We took it as a little bit like in a very playful way, and there were other travelers that were invited also to do it. The first intention was really to give a voice to the spirits of nature, and it evolved from there. And my first research about it was to understand how we have been able to disconnect so much from the highest sacred spirit of nature, how we are not able to see the sacredness of everything that is, in those trees and, in the planet. And I received the message that the reason why there was a disconnection that prevent us to touch the sacredness of this, it's because we lost the ability to sense with our multidimensional sense. We are lost our ability to see beyond the physical dimension. And so, of course, if we are not able to see beyond the physical dimension, I'm not able to see that this thing actually has a sacred spirit that has so many impact on many different planes and dimensions. Because myself, I don't remember that myself, my real existence is expanded on so many planes and dimensions. I see myself only on this very narrow physical realm. And so, yeah, that was the beginning of this journey and of this book.
Yes, I want to speak to that because I believe, and I picked up the hint as well from your book, one of the reasons we lost it wasn't just something that happened, but basically there's suggestions made by those who might be trying out a different experiment right now. Mm-hmm. One that is not going to serve them in the long run. However, they are the power brokers of the three-dimensional world, of the leaders of finance, the leaders of, at these high levels. And they tend to have a belief system that the universe is a prison and that they're simply the wardens of a prison. And their job then is to keep the people at lower consciousness states. However, they can't do that overtly. If they try to force it, the organic uprising is too great. So they make suggestions. Mm-hmm. And it's our responsibility to not go along with the suggestions. Yeah. You said it beautifully in your book that these suggestions are mere potential holograms, yes, potential realities. And whether you accept it or reject it and fight it, you're giving energy, you're feeding the darkness, because the darkness doesn't have a source of power intrinsically. Yes. It only has power when it feeds off of things. So if it's feeding off of your attention and your emotions, you're feeding it to come into materialization, mm-hmm, as opposed to remaining just a potential that kind of floats by. Mm-hmm. And in this day and age, I feel like there's two kind of major camps of people who are awake. One is they're like what you're speaking about, where they're essentially awake and they focus on what's important. And they move through and they purify the distractions that come up, and they shift and they adapt as necessary. The other camp, because there's been a lot of changes in the last few years, can get fixated on the conspiratorial nature of things, and they go down the rabbit holes. And the people I know like this, my heart goes out to them, because on one hand, they're awake, they have their practice, but they're also living in a state of fear, and they're feeding more of that fear coming into existence.
I don't know if we can make two camps, because I think that ourselves, we are constantly moving from one camp to another as a constant readjustment and looking for balance constantly. So whatever we see, the two camps that we can see outside, we also have them inside. And it's constantly remembering to not give in to the suggestion, but also maintaining a level of awareness that, yes, there are programs that can be implemented, and if we are losing our attention. And for example, in one of the journeys that were not published in that book, they were showing us that there were some etherical devices that were attached to people ready to pass on some programs. And those programs were able to pass on when people were in in a kind of semi-hypnotic state. And how are they coming to this semi-hypnotic state? In front of electronic device. So when you're on your device and you're scrolling, at some point, there is a kind of absence that is happening, like you're not really present anymore. You're like semi-absent and you keep scrolling. At this moment, you're open to receive any program. And so we have to maintain a certain level of awareness of what we allow in and what we commit not to allow in. And so I think in these moments with so much attempt of manipulation, and we have to pray, actually, for the truth to be able to live a line with divine truth, because it's very easy to get manipulated in one sense or another, and just remember not to fall into the trick of division, because this is not going to help us to rise higher in any case.
Mm-hmm. I wasn't necessarily referring to a division into two camps, but I'm saying that is a trap that some of us fall into. And I've been there myself, so I know what that experience is like. And I agree with you, too, that, like, especially now navigating technology, and if the technology moves faster than we do, we get a poor facsimile, and we end up getting stuck in a lower level of consciousness rather than using the technology consciously to, affect more things out there.
Yeah. And I think that one very important point is to what they were saying, especially the message that we received from the Kogis and the Sierra, that it's so very important to connect deeply with nature, because when we find again our connection to the divine through nature, it helps us being centered, help us being able to recognize a vibration that is grounded in light or vibration that is coming from somewhere else. And in this moment of darkness, we're looking, for some light, for some direction, but we can't hold that rope. That rope is our connection, inner connection, and this is what allows us to navigate through times where things are not clear and confused. But I love the message that Catalina downloaded about the hologram, is that it's about any potential reality can happen, any proposition from any camp, how you present them, can become the reality. And we have to just to see it as potential bubble. This is how we were saying, like potential bubble. And when we turn our focus from it, it doesn't mean ignoring it. It means disengaging energetically. Yes, it's two things. First of all, you disengage energetically from that bubble, so you don't keep nurturing it so it doesn't become a more dense reality. And second, you focus on what you have to do. And this came up also in a journey that I've done with Chogede that helped me personally a lot, is that just the moment you remember just to do what you have to do your job. When I say to do your job, is what you are good at, the way you align with light, the way you align, and if you didn't find that yet, then, there are many ways to get there, many ways to recognize that. But when you find that and you keep doing your job, just by doing your job, you making way for light. You're clearing your vessel, you're preparing your vessel to be a light container, and then nothing, light automatically dissolve anything that is not coming from, a light place. So if you have enough space within you to contain enough light, that's all you need to focus on.
In the Arctic, they have these boats. They're called icebreakers, and they basically go right through the ice. Mm-hmm. And it's like, metaphorically, it's like the ice is like an impenetrable obstacle. You look at it in the 3D and like, how could we possibly ever? It's like you stick with your direction. When you have that compass, you will part the Red Sea. You will break through the ice.
And what he was, for example, just to give an example of what he was saying is in this journey, that he was saying a man completely swallowed to the west by a boa, by a snake, and there was no way that this man could survive from, from this. And he just remember, and he said that he just remembered to do his job. What was his job? Was to chop, in the forest, to make, a path in the forest. So he just took out the axes that he had in his pocket, and just by doing so, it cut the snake that was swallowing him. And so he did not even try to fight the snake. He just remembered to do his work, and he took out his tools to do his work, and everything was cleared for him. And so that personally helped me a lot, because sometimes you're like, what can we do? You could feel powerlessness, but when you remember to do the one thing that you know to do well, things are clearing up.
It reminds me, so I work with a lot of conscious business owners. I do a lot of work, call it business, but it's really life's work. If there's something we can do that we love, that helps the world, and we receive the resources to live, that is essentially work. And one thing I realized, and I started doing that was beautiful, was taking my shamanic skills and applying them to what do I do next? Do I do the to-do list that my mind created that has all these things on it? No, and I'm going to tune in, and I'm going to speak to my business. I'm going to have that relationship. And it would often show me symbolism. And it would say things to me, especially if I was nervous. Like there was times when I'm like, oh, I just started a new business, the money isn't coming in. Show me what I need to do. And in the business, calm down, just wait. And it would show me. And then like Catalina was saying, that thing would happen. And I'd be like, it just popped out. And in many ways, that relationship and working with it in non-ordinary reality is the simple path. It's the path that organizes all of the complicated little details for us so that we don't have to go around spending our valuable, precious time and energy trying to do all these little things, because that's done from a very different place than the broadcast of the heart, which basically, like you say, one action, which is chopping through the jungle, chops the way and prevents the snake from swallowing you.
Yes, and what he said is that in the first place, what allowed the snake to catch it is that he had a moment where he lost his presence. He was not present fully with what he had to do.
So that's the clincher.
Yeah. Be fully present.
The clincher is, it's simple, it's beautiful, it's going to feel great, but you must remain fully present. And I will be the first to admit I've spent many moments of my life not fully present, and they add up to added complexity and things that have to be sorted out later. And it's much better to remember the power of our presence, and that force of truth, it holds all the things that we need. And so if there's one priority, it is to become present in the moment. That will fix everything else. Would you agree with that, Catalina?
Totally.
You've been sitting here so wonderfully just absorbing. I'd love to hear more from you. Is there anything you'd like to share specifically about the work you're doing now in the world with Catalina, with Shalva?
I am a breathwork teacher. So that's my main tool for saying in a way. And with all these journeys that we had, we download like a whole course about how to activate the light body. So we do it through breath work and meditations, and bring a lot of images and a lot of spaces that I touch in that journeys. I bring them for people to remember in their own way. But I think that it's amazing because it's getting thousands of people are coming only to receive this information, and they can connect in 1 second people that maybe never meditate before, but they are like really open, and there is like some transmission that it's getting to them, and they are allowing themselves to open to light. So I think that I am very positive about the moment that we are going through, even if it's everything seems in destruction. But like the messages that we received were so clear that destruction needs to be. It's a process of this realm, but that the earth is going through maybe it ritual of passage more ritual of passages more important in all her history. So she is transcending and she is evolving in his conscious level, and we can decide if we are with her and catch her, or if we decide to live in this loop and living in this reality that it's not going to be as powerful of the reality that the earth is just about to cross to. So I feel like more people and more people are understanding this and anchoring their own light, because many of the instructions was to make a whole network of light. And that begins when the person is anchored in their own process and having like their own spot, because sometimes the people want to have your life, want to have your experience because it seems better, but they need to be in the position, the correct position for themselves, for this network to get activated. And in that moment, we can help the earth to transcend, because we are in this moment of transcendence.
I have a Octave Leap sort of had a vision in it initially, and I call them nodes or posts, where every person plays their role. And it works like an ecosystem, right? Mm-hmm. In an ecosystem, the whole thing is supported by each of the parts, but each part has its own specialization. A tree has a different role than a river, than a squirrel, but they all work together. The bee carries the pollen from flower to flower. Certain plants will keep the bugs out that would eat other plants in the area. So they all work together, but they all have a different role. And so it's important that we find our role and that we connect in a way that honors the role of each participant in that mesh, and that it spirals upwards as a result. There's so much you said in there. There's so many things that I want to touch on in that that thing, especially I'm going to start with the destruction element, because what you were saying before is that when the technology exceeds the growth of consciousness, what happens? Well, since World War II, look at the rapid acceleration of technology. The agriculture, for instance, is like, we can make money if we just, we have the tools now to grow these crops and fields. I come from a part of Canada where there's thousands of kilometers of wheat and soy and canola. And they're just like, when the consciousness is low, they're like, this is better for money. And there's no consideration of the land. And so these institutions that have been built on these principles where the technology has exceeded the level of consciousness and they're done for the wrong reasons, of course they have to go. Of course they cannot remain in the vision of an incredible new world that we're featuring. And we see the children rising up of today. I have a 2-year-old daughter, and she just like blows my mind. And not even young children, but like people in their 20s and 30s now are doing incredible things that are exceeding. And so for me, that is a sign like this is a new generation that has new upgrades in them that the dark forces have no chance over. For instance, there's 20-year-old kids that are the dark forces saying, well, we're going to imprison you with money. And these kids come up and they're millionaires. And now they're like, well, I don't want to live without purpose. I'm going to like go and invest in reforestation projects and stuff. And we beat you at your own game, essentially. Yeah. And so it's beautiful in a way to see that. And so, yes, the destruction needs to happen. We can have a sense of humor about it, and it shouldn't distract us from what we're here to do. The other thing I want to talk about too is more general about shamanism, because there's something you said there, and I tried this once with breathwork and shamanic voyaging. Most of the time I'm a musician, and I've always resonated with using the drum, right? Because the drum has that frequency following effect where your brain wave entrains into the frequency of the drum and it brings you into theta. However, of course, in shamanism, there's a variety of tools. There's trance dance, there's hypnosis, there's drumming, there's breath work. Some cultures use plant medicine, for instance. But there is something necessary to elicit the shamanic state of awareness, right? I think that's an important part of the journey. And so I want to know a little bit more about the role that breath has specifically in cultivating, facilitating, and nurturing the ability for people to voyage shamanically.
The thing with the breath is that we are not breathing in the whole potential. So we are only breathing for surviving. So our sensation of life is very limited. But in the moment that we, in a conscious way, begin to breathe more air and begin to open spaces inside our body that are locked or blocked because of their experience or traumas or beliefs that we have, the air begins to open these blockages and begin to open a space for new information or for the information to come. So it's a very good tool to help that body to open, to receive other frequencies, to receive other information. Because the thing is that inside of us, we are stuck. Mm-hmm. We are so close, so tight. So we need to open a space to allow to feel. And also, for me, the breath work is a tool to make the people understand that they are safe in their body, because that's another thing that doesn't allow for us to connect, that we have fear of feeling. For example, with this multidimensional part, we are very scared of tapping into that sensations, because somehow the people think that it's going to get crazy, that they are going to lose control. So with breath work, we open in a very gentle way, because at the beginning I worked like with 15 years with holotropic breath. But since I arrived to Bali six years ago, it's all tuned with the softness and with the sweet part of allowing yourself to open so you can connect to this multidimensional part.
It's interesting about the contraction, because we're 99.999% space. The physical part of us, anything, is these atoms. There's such an immense space. If you have an atom, an atom was the size of an orange, there'd be 2 soccer fields between atoms, right? Like it's such, we are mostly space. So what is the thing that creates the contraction? It is the weak and strong nuclear forces between atoms. So it's an energetic bind in a way. And so really, this is again scientifically showing that we are just energy, and that the thoughts and the reinforcement of certain patterns is what causes an energetic contraction. But of course, the breath, to inspire, to breathe in, it goes in there and it creates the space again. And so that I find fascinating, because the breath, it just seems like, well, it's air. How can it go in and get rid of this pain I have in my back? Well, it does that because it literally shifts it on a plasmic level, or on the template level, that rearranges the energy completely.
Yes, I think that opened the water inside.
Yes.
So it's like having access to all the fascia. What it makes the air is to make the fascia move and make the fascia to be activated. And like we are water too, and the water is this transmitter of light, and very fast, and it brings information very quick to all the parts of the body. So yes, I think that it's that too, no?
Absolutely. You know, one of the things I work with, and I later realized, oh yeah, they did this a lot in India, is when you have your own phrase, your own motto for what you're here to do, and you repeat that, you reprogram the waters of the body, you reprogram the cells on that level, because water's polar, right? So it responds to electricity very well. Similarly in India, they would, back in the day, a guru would give you a mantra, and then you repeat that mantra, and if it was your personal one, it would reattune you to the frequency of light. And it's so beautiful, because it is actually very simple, right?
Very.
It's very, very simple. And we forget that. Cards full, okay. Okay, so we're going to continue with audio now, because our card is full. So we'll put a nice little screen up here This has happened the last two. Every time we use DSLR cameras, it always happens. Yeah. But anyway, I think let's just turn it over to Shalva at this point, and I want you to respond to sort of the last bit of dialogue that Catalina and I have been having, because I feel like you've really weaved this beautiful, rich fabric into the mix, and I'd really love to hear what you have to say.
I'm not a specialist of breath work. This is a specialty of Catalina, but I would say that it's not just the air, it's the intention of surrendering. I mean, of course, you know, the fact that we're able to initiate the process on a physical level with the breath work, it's an amazing tool. But when we want to go further, I mean, it's kind of pushing us, because the process of breathing in and out is like pushing us to that state of where we have to surrender. And this is the state of surrendering that is actually creating the space. Because we are the one creating the obstacles. And when we surrender, we let go of the obstacles. We allow the light to transmute the obstacles, because the obstacles are what are, you know, all the imprints and the mass and the energy that are stored in our field. And so any trauma that is not resolved is still stored in our field, whether it's our emotional or mental body. And that's the reason why when we are speaking about healing in general, and in order to go through conscious expansion, it always starts with healing, with deep, profound healing. And so when we are speaking about healing in general, whatever you are addressing, you have to address it in every layer of your body. You have to address it on the physical layer, on the etheric layer, on the mental layer, on the emotional layer, and beyond, on the spiritual layer. You have to address it everywhere, because that trauma is actually recorded everywhere. And when we address something, whether it's anxiety, whatever we are addressing, and we address it just from one angle, for example, on a mental level, you go like you have a mental health issue, and you address it just on from the mental perspective. That's not enough. That's not enough, and that will not be resolving the issue on long term, because there are many imprints of the same issue on many other layers. And if you really want to address it, you have to go and check what imprint it had left on the other layers of your whole being. And that's what profound healing is. It's about really clearing all the layers. And when you've done that, and you're not stuck anymore in your mental body or your emotional body, or any, not major blockage, yes, then, the light come and, allow this transmutation of those blockages, because you surrender. But then you're able to start this work of consciousness expansion. And the light body activation is part of it. And light body activation is an amazing protocol that was downloaded through Catalina, and then we are teaching now together. And there is a mentorship program that starts in January. And in this mentorship program, so we are doing this in collaboration, but in this mentorship program, we spend like 2 months about clearing the mental, emotional, etherical, physical, spiritual layers before we start about anything else, because this is preparing the vessel that will contain the light. We cannot just, call in the light if there is no space inside. So we are making the space, we're clearing, we are restoring the vessel. And then when the light comes in, it doesn't create explosion, it doesn't create damage, because it can happen also that when people are not ready. For example, I don't teach shamanic, this type of shamanic initiation to people who are not ready. So in order to start this, it needs to have a minimum of clearing the vessel in order to contain that light and allow that expansion without causing damage.
It's a very important feature, because if you let the light in, it's like letting voltage into a circuitry that's not wired properly, and it blows up, right? Because the light brings with it a lot of charge. And so the wiring must be mended properly before that can come in. One question I have for you is, Catalina works with breathwork. What do you do to help the people that you work with enter into a shamanic state of awareness?
So it depends on the setting of the person. I'm evaluating the abilities of the person, and according to that I will take the shortcut. So I will go the long run. With Catalina I took the shortcut because she was already able to meditate, and she had a lot of experience with breath work, but basically otherwise I first of all I check if there is some major obstacle in terms of healing, something that will prevent them to go, because sometimes people try to I just use guided meditation. So I'm using my experience in hypnotherapist, a transpersonal hypnotherapist, and I'm incorporating into a lot of light work, Tao healing, but the different modalities I'm incorporating into this, but I'm guiding them from that space of hypnotherapist. But I don't need to actually induce hypnosis into people. Just guided meditation is enough. And according to the facilities of the people, they would go quick or longer. And then if it takes longer, I check if there are some major obstacles that prevent them to go, if there are fears, whatever is on the way that is preventing them to expand. And then when I find that, then we work on this first, and then we move forward.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah. I can see having a background in hypnosis is sort of like the launch pad in a way to being able to just sit with a person, speak, and energetically sort of guide their awareness down through those chronic buffers that normally ping them back into the ordinary consciousness.
Yeah. And also this method that I put in place in my own way is that people don't need, first of all, it's creating a safe space to do these shamanic journeys, because I'm journeying with them. I'm in a yang position and they are in a yin position. It means that they are the one receiving, and me, I'm like watching from outside, but at the same time participating in the dialogue that is happening with the guides. And so it's a safe space where people actually can experience shamanic journey in a very profound way without having to go through the intense shamanic training that you normally need to have in order to access this quality of information. Because when you go through the traditional way, first of all, you can get it's amazing to go through the traditional way, but until you reach to that state where you are able to focus all the way through the journey and remember the questions that you have to ask, and so there are many things, many advantage in being able to have someone that is holding space for you and actually targeting directly to direct you to exactly where you need to go. Because you could go in a shamanic journey and get completely lost, and say, oh, what should I do now? Where should I go? Oh, okay, I see some images, but then what's next? So this one really is like acceleration. It's a protocol that allows an incredible acceleration of what you can get from a shamanic journey in a safe and therapeutical space. So if the guys say, hey, now we have to make a pose to heal this thing that is actually not aligned, we make a pose and we heal it with the guide, and then we move forward. So it's like it's a teamwork with the guides.
Well, we're not in traditional times right now.
Yeah.
We're in accelerated times. So it makes sense that the method of getting there needs to be accelerated. And in many ways, I resonate with that, because I found in my own process, my own exploration, I was often moving faster than if I had teachers that were more in a traditional setting. I'm like, what do I do now? This is well beyond the instruction. And at the same time, the guidance is important too, because if you move too fast, you become like a rabbit and a hare. You might go in the rabbit and the tortoise, where you might go too fast and then you get stuck. So I love the fact that it's a safe, supported space, but you're able to sort of versatilely, if that's a word, adapt with the person, move with them at the speed that they're ready to go, and kind of be the midwife or the one that kind of moves them in the right direction.
Yeah, it's really being, it's really like, you use the word midwife. I had so many times this sensation that I was the midwife, allowing a new birth. So many times it's like giving, facilitating the birth of a new dimension of the person that the person completely, they did not even imagine there was that dimension of themselves waiting to be born again, and this is what's happening. And once they are born, but that's it. There are so many new openings, new things that are opening up for them. It's like a complete different dimension. And then yes, it becomes very intertwined in their life, and it becomes a spiritual path. So for me, this is not a job. This is my spiritual path. This is my calling. This is, yeah. So because this is what I do. I'm just this guy that help people cross bridge. So I'm always at the bridge. Sometimes people go way beyond the bridge and they're flying, and me, I'm still really, and me, I have to stay here at the bridge, you know. But I have to stick there because this is where I am.
Somebody's got to hold that post, right?
Sorry. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's gonna be me. Maybe they're going to assign me another bridge later on. Who knows?
At least bring you some drinks while you're on the bridge so you get some tea served to you. Yes. This has been such a fabulous chat. And your book, I was sent obviously like I don't know if it's the full version, if it's out yet, but I think that would probably be something to direct any listeners to, is if they want to know more about you, would the book be a good place for them to go, or where would you send people to?
It depends if people are looking for this book is, it has a lot of component. We just obviously spoke about one aspect of it, but definitely if you're interested in ways to develop your consciousness expansion, and also if you're interested to hear about what the spirits of nature have to say to humanity, their intake of what's happening right now, their vision, their understanding, the message they have to give us, and not just them, but all the light beings that came forward to give us guidance about how to cross, this challenging time, then that would be. This is, I've seen a lot of obstacles while I was putting this book together, and I kept being committed to it, because I said all these messages, they came to be shared. I have to be loyal to them and go until the end and really deliver it, because those are not my messages. They were a message of all those beings that trusted us to be delivered. And this is what we're doing with this book, really, is just to deliver these messages that humans would benefit hearing. And so the name of the book, of course, is a message to humanity from nature and beyond. And it was created with the intention to create a communication platform for all the living, and allow humans to reconnect with universal consciousness. Voilà.
Beautiful. Any final words from you, Catalina?
Thank you very much. It was... for me, fulfill my heart, to see Shalva explaining about this book, because she's a very passionate and very dedicated to the instructions that she received. So for me, I don't know, I was seeing you and I was like, this is amazing. We are here, finally.
Oh my God. You cannot imagine how many obstacles we have seen on this way,
But she keeps the flag, So I'm very, I want to also say thank you so much for being in my life, and yes, I love you with all my heart. And thank you. Was very nice to be here with you too.
Well, that's a very heartwarming high note to finish on. So thank you, ladies, both for coming. Thank you for sitting down and sharing your love, wisdom, and multidimensional insights. And for the listeners of the show, There'll be some notes below with future links to any of the stuff we've talked about. So thank you very much for tuning in, and have yourselves a wonderful day.